Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know how much we love to explore these big ideas that help us understand how the world works and, more importantly, how we can kind of make our own dent in the universe, right?
Absolutely. And today, we're going deep on a concept that's been around forever, but has taken on a whole new meaning in our hyper-connected world.
We're talking about tribes.
Drives.
But hold on. Before you picture folks in traditional garb, we're not talking anthropology here.
Not this time.
We're using tribe to describe any group of people who rally around a shared passion, a cause, an idea, a movement they believe in. And what's really interesting is that these tribes have always existed. I mean, think about it. For millennia, humans have formed communities around shared interests.
Exactly. Whether it was a common ancestor, a geographical location, or even just the same favorite hunting grounds, all it took was that shared interest, and bam, a tribe emerges.
Exactly. But here's the thing. What's changed dramatically, and this is what we're going to unpack today, is how the internet has blown the doors wide open on what a tribe can be and how it functions.
Huge, right?
Absolutely huge. And to guide us through this fascinating landscape, we're diving into the brilliant mind of Seth Godin and his book, Tribes, We Need You to Lead Us.
A classic.
Totally. And our mission today is to not just understand the raw power of these modern-day tribes, but also equip you, the listener, with the tools and insights to potentially lead one yourself.
Because that's the thing, right? Leadership isn't reserved for the folks in corner offices or with fancy titles.
Absolutely not. It can come from anywhere. Whether you're in a massive organization, a tiny startup, or even just someone with a burning passion, the principles we're about to explore apply to you. So, buckle up. We're about to embark on a deep dive into the world of tribes. Let's get started, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first. How has the internet, this thing we spend way too much time on, totally revolutionized what a tribe looks like and how it operates?
Well, think about it this way. In the past, tribes were largely limited by geography, right? You had to be physically near other people to form those connections.
Right, like the local knitting circle or the neighborhood watch group.
Exactly. But the internet has shattered those physical barriers. Now, people with shared interests, no matter how niche or specific, can find each other and connect instantly, regardless of where they are in the world.
It's amazing to think about, right? Like you could have a group of CIA analysts sharing insights with volunteers at the ACLU, all collaborating seamlessly online, even though they might be on opposite sides of the globe.
Precisely. And this has led to an explosion in the number and diversity of tribes. You've got tribes for everything from vintage typewriter enthusiasts to people who collect those little hotel soaps, the ones they put in the bathroom.
Oh yeah, my aunt collects those.
See, there's a tribe for everything.
But it's not just about the number of tribes. This shift has also dramatically impacted how organizations and businesses approach growth.
Oh, absolutely. The old playbook, that focus on slow, steady growth, building market share incrementally, being really risk averse, that's kind of going the way of the dodo.
Like those old car companies that just kept churning out the same models year after year, thinking nothing would ever change.
Yeah, and then a little company called Tesla comes along and says, hold my battery-powered beer.
Right. Suddenly you've got this sleek electric sports car, the Roadster, hitting the streets and turning heads.
It was a total paradigm shift. And it's not just Tesla. Look at the Prius. Hybrid technology had been around for ages, but it took Toyota to really run with it and create a car that resonated with a tribe of environmentally conscious consumers.
And the established car makers? Well, they're still playing catch-up.
Exactly. The game has changed. In today's world, growth comes from finding the people who really resonate with what you're doing, your message, your mission. It's about connecting with those who are actively seeking something new, something that breaks the mold. And those people are out there waiting to be part of something meaningful.
And you know what's really exciting about this?
What's that?
This shift isn't just for big corporations with tons of resources.
Oh, absolutely not.
This new landscape levels the playing field in a really powerful way.
It really does. I mean, if Tesla can shake up the auto industry and a young mom in Boston can build a massive following on Twitter, just imagine what you, with your unique ideas and passions, can achieve.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing, right?
They really are.
So clearly, leadership is at the heart of all of this. But it's essential to understand that leadership in this context is not just about managing people or processes. It's different.
Very different. You know, it's funny. I always think of that I Love Lucy episode where she's on the chocolate factory assembly line.
Oh, yeah, the chocolates are coming at her faster and faster, and she's stuffing them in her mouth, down her dress, anywhere she can hide them.
Exactly. That's a hilarious but also surprisingly accurate depiction of traditional management. It's about keeping the existing system running smoothly, making sure all the parts are working as they should, and maintaining the status quo.
But leadership, especially in the context of tribes, is something else entirely.
It really is. See, the rise of effective marketing has completely shifted the balance of power.
Because now, the tribe has a choice. They're not stuck with whatever the king decides anymore.
Exactly. They can vote with their feet, their wallets, their attention. And this means leaders can't just dictate from on high. They need to connect with their tribe, inspire them, give them something to believe in.
And this is where marketing comes in. But again, we're not talking about slick ad campaigns or manipulative tactics.
No, no, no. This is about telling authentic stories, stories that resonate, stories that spread organically because they tap into something deeper, something that people genuinely care about. And this kind of storytelling can be incredibly powerful. It can influence entire markets, shape public opinion, even determine the fate of CEOs. Remember Carly Fiorina?
Right, ousted from HP after a very public battle for control of the narrative.
Precisely. So leadership in the tribal age is about connecting, inspiring, and empowering, not dictating or controlling.
So if we're talking about leadership that can emerge from anywhere, does that mean you don't need a fancy title or a position of authority to lead a tribe?
Not at all. Godin uses this fantastic example of a guy named Thomas Barnett, a researcher at the Pentagon with no real rank or power.
Okay.
And yet, through a brilliantly crafted PowerPoint presentation, he managed to completely shift the thinking of some of the most powerful military leaders in the world.
Seriously?
Seriously. He presented his ideas in a way that resonated, that connected, that sparked a movement within the Pentagon. And this happened not because he was a general or a high-ranking official, but because he was a leader with a compelling vision.
That's incredible. It really shows you that anyone with the right idea and the right approach can become a leader, even in a seemingly rigid structure like the military.
Absolutely. And it highlights another key aspect of leading tribes. It's not just about broadcasting your message from the top down.
It's a two-way street.
Exactly. Think about the Grateful Dead. They didn't just play concerts. They created an entire experience for their tribe, a space where fans could connect with the music, with each other, and become part of something larger than themselves.
And it wasn't just a one-off event. It was this ongoing, evolving relationship between the band and their fans that kept the tribe thriving for decades.
And you see this same principle at play in smaller, more intimate settings, too, like that Jack restaurant in Brooklyn we were talking about earlier.
The one that pops up in different locations.
Yeah, exactly. The owners, Danielle Suture and Dave Turner, they're not just serving food. They're creating an experience, a gathering, a sense of community for their tribe.
So it's really about fostering that connection,
Yeah.
both between the leader and the tribe and among the tribe members themselves.
It's about building something together, something that everyone feels invested in.
So how do you go from just having a group of people to actually creating a movement? What's the secret sauce?
Former Senator Bill Bradley laid out 3 key ingredients for a movement, and I think they're spot on. First, you need a narrative, a compelling story that defines who you are, what you believe in, and where you're going.
Like a shared vision of the future.
Exactly. Second, you need connection. We've talked about this, but it bears repeating a strong bond between the leader and the tribe and among the tribe members themselves is essential.
It's that sense of belonging and shared purpose.
Precisely. And finally, you need something to do, some sort of action, some way for the tribe to actively participate and contribute to the movement.
And Bradley suggests that the fewer limits on this action, the better.
Right. Give people the freedom to contribute in their own unique ways, to express their passion and creativity. That's where the real magic happens.
But sometimes you see organizations that have huge memberships, tons of resources, and yet they don't seem to make much of an impact.
That's a great point. Size isn't everything. Think about the American Automobile Association. Millions of members, but do they really drive significant societal change? Arguably not as much as a smaller, more focused organization like TED, which is all about spreading powerful ideas and sparking action.
That's because TED has a clear narrative, a strong connection with its tribe, and a very specific something to do: attend those mind-blowing conferences and share those ideas with the world.
Exactly. It's about focus and engagement, not just sheer numbers.
And speaking of spreading ideas, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, social media. I mean, it's almost impossible to talk about tribes today without acknowledging the massive impact of platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the whole shebang.
Right. Social media has become this incredible tool for connecting with like-minded people, building tribes, and amplifying messages. It's given individuals a level of reach and influence that was simply unimaginable a few decades ago. Look at Laura Fitton, that young mom in Boston. She built a massive Twitter following just by sharing her thoughts and experiences in an authentic and engaging way.
But here's the thing I find really interesting. Technology might enable these connections, but it doesn't create them out of thin air.
It's a catalyst, not the cause.
Exactly. Remember that story about Scott Beale and the Alta Vista party?
Oh, yeah, at SXSW?
Yeah. He sent out a single tweet announcing a spontaneous gathering, and hundreds of people showed up.
It's amazing how quickly something like that can go viral.
But it wasn't just the tweet that made it happen. It was the years Scott had spent building relationships, trust, and credibility with his online community. That tweet was just the spark, but the fuel was the strong foundation he'd already laid.
It's like that saying, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it.
Right, those connections take time and effort to nurture.
They really do. At the core of any strong tribe is a kind of faith, a belief in a shared vision, a respect for the leader, and a sense of belonging that goes beyond just liking the same things.
It's about believing in something bigger than yourself, something you're willing to invest in, something you're willing to work for.
And that kind of belief, that shared faith, can be an incredibly powerful motivator.
Okay, so we've talked about how tribes are formed, how they operate, how leadership works in this new landscape. But let's be honest, stepping into a leadership role, even if it's just leading a small group of people, can be scary.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of fear that comes up. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of change.
Especially the fear of change. It's almost hardwired into us, right? For millennia, change often meant danger, uncertainty, even death.
Right, and our brains haven't quite caught up to the fact that in today's world, change is often the key to survival, to growth, to making a real impact.
It's like that paraphrased Peter principle, where people rise to the level of their incompetence. But it's not about competence, it's about fear. People get to a certain level and they become so paralyzed by fear that they can't move forward.
It's tragic, really. And you know what's even worse? Sometimes that fear prevents us from even trying.
Because we're so afraid of what other people think, of being criticized, of being judged.
It's like we'd rather play it safe and stay stuck than risk putting ourselves out there and potentially facing rejection.
You know, Godin has this really interesting way of looking at criticism. He says that remarkable ideas, the ones that really make a difference, are like purple cows.
Purple cows.
Yeah, he says if you were driving down the road and saw a purple cow in a field, you'd stop and take notice.
Of course, you'd be like, what the heck is that?
Exactly. But if you saw a regular brown cow, you wouldn't even think twice. You'd just keep driving.
So his point is that remarkable ideas, the ones that challenge the status quo, are going to get noticed and they're going to get criticized.
But that criticism is a good thing.
It means you're doing something worth talking about.
It means you're not just blending in with the herd. You're standing out.
And ultimately, as leaders, we can't let the fear of criticism hold us back. We need to focus on our tribe, on our vision, and on making a positive impact.
And that leads us to a really important point. True leadership isn't about what you can get from your tribe, but about what you can give.
It's about generosity, about service, about putting the needs of your tribe above your own ego or personal gain.
And, you know, you see this kind of leadership in action all the time, even in unexpected places. Think about Jim Delegati, the McDonald's franchisee who created the Big Mac.
The Big Mac, a classic.
Right. He wasn't a high-powered executive. He was just a guy who saw a way to improve the menu and make customers happy.
And he ended up creating one of the most iconic sandwiches in history.
And then there's Percy Spencer, the engineer who accidentally discovered the principles of microwave cooking while working at Raytheon.
That's a great story.
He wasn't trying to invent a revolutionary new appliance. He was just curious, tinkering around in the lab, and bam, he changes the way we cook forever.
These are great examples of how leadership can emerge from anywhere, from any level of an organization. And before the internet, these kinds of stories were rare.
But now, in this age of interconnectedness, everyone has the potential to be a leader, to spark change, to make a difference.
And it doesn't require a fancy title or years of experience. Look at Bare Naked Granola. They took on the giants of the breakfast cereal industry, Kellogg's, General Mills, the whole bunch. And they did it by leading a tribe of health-conscious consumers down a different path.
They didn't have the same resources, the same distribution networks, the same marketing budgets as the big guys.
But they had a clear vision, a passionate tribe, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. And that's what made all the difference.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of generosity, of courage, of a willingness to challenge the status quo. What about curiosity? What role does that play in leadership?
Curiosity is huge. Godin talks about this distinction between a fundamentalist and a curious person. The fundamentalist sees the world through a very narrow lens, interpreting everything through their pre-existing beliefs.
They're not open to new information or different perspectives.
Exactly. But the curious person, the leader, is constantly exploring, asking questions, seeking to understand. They're driven by the desire to learn and grow.
And it's this curiosity that often allows leaders to connect with the masses in the middle, the people who are stuck, unsure of what to do or where to go.
The curious leader is able to cut through the noise and provide clarity, direction, and a sense of purpose.
And this brings up another really important point. Trying to lead everyone, trying to appeal to the masses, often results in leading no one in particular.
It's like trying to please everyone. You end up pleasing no one.
Exactly. As a leader, you get to choose the tribe you want to lead. You attract the people who resonate with your vision, your values, your message.
Think about Al Gore. He didn't set out to be a global leader on climate change. He just started talking about something he deeply believed in, and the tribe found him.
Okay, so let's say you've got a vision, you've identified your tribe, you're ready to step into that leadership role. What's the next step? How do you actually make it happen?
Well, Godin has a somewhat provocative term for this. He calls it being a heretic.
A heretic, like someone who goes against the grain, challenges the established order.
Exactly. But here's the thing. In today's world, heretics aren't burned at the stake anymore.
They're celebrated.
Exactly. In fact, they're often the ones who drive innovation, disruption, and meaningful change. Think about entrepreneurs, artists, activists. They're all heretics in their own way.
So the question isn't, how do I do this risk-free? It's, will I choose to lead?
Precisely. And once you've made that choice, it's important to understand that leadership is about action, about making things happen.
It's about moving from reaction to response to initiative.
Right. Reacting is instinctual. It's
Yeah.
often driven by fear or anger. It's what we do when we feel threatened. Responding is a step up. It's more thoughtful, more deliberate. But initiating, that's where true leadership lies.
It's about proactively creating change, not just reacting to it.
Exactly. And sometimes the best leadership you can offer is to follow, to support someone else's vision if you're not fully committed or passionate about it.
So it's about being honest with yourself and your tribe.
Absolutely. And it's about shifting from that old model of things happen to me to a new model of I make things happen.
Like those real estate agents we were talking about earlier. Some saw the mortgage crisis as a disaster, something that was happening to them, and they just gave up.
But others saw it as an opportunity to innovate, to adapt, to serve their clients in new ways.
And those are the ones who not only survive, but thrive.
Precisely. They became leaders.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of shifts happening right now, not just in how tribes form and operate, but also in how organizations are structured and how leadership is viewed.
Absolutely. The old, rigid hierarchies where information was tightly controlled and dissent was frowned upon are becoming less and less effective.
Because in today's world, the most successful organizations are the ones that embrace transparency, empower their employees, and encourage initiative from every level.
And that's where heretics, those who challenge the status quo, become incredibly valuable.
They're the ones who push the boundaries, come up with new ideas, and drive innovation.
Exactly. And Godin lays out 5 key principles for creating a successful movement. And these principles are really relevant for any leader, regardless of the size or structure of their organization.
Okay, let's hear them.
So, principle number 1 is transparency.
Being open and honest with your tribe, sharing information freely, and creating a culture of trust.
Exactly. Principle number 2 is making sure the movement is bigger than you. It's not about personal gain or ego. It's about serving a higher purpose.
Like that sense of shared faith we were talking about earlier.
Precisely. Principle number 3 is continuous growth and improvement. You're always learning, adapting, and evolving.
Never standing still.
Exactly. Principle number 4 is having a clear contrast with the status quo.
Being different, standing out, making it clear what you stand for and what you're against.
And finally, principle number 5 is exclusion. This one might seem counterintuitive, but it's about defining who is not part of the tribe.
Because having clear boundaries actually strengthens the bonds within the tribe.
Exactly. It creates a sense of exclusivity, of belonging, of shared values.
So how does a leader actually go about tightening those bonds within the tribe? What are some practical tools and strategies for building that sense of connection?
Well, one of the most powerful ways is through storytelling. We've talked about this already, but it's worth emphasizing again. Sharing stories that resonate with your tribe, stories that illustrate your values and your vision, can create a powerful sense of unity and purpose.
And these stories can take many forms. They could be personal anecdotes, case studies, historical accounts, even fictional narratives.
A key is that they need to be authentic and engaging, and they need to connect with your tribe on an emotional level. Think about Steve Jobs and Apple. He was a master storyteller, and he used that skill to create a cult-like following around his products.
He created these elaborate rituals around product launches, kept everything shrouded in secrecy to build anticipation, and then delivered these captivating presentations that left people wanting more.
Exactly. He understood the power of storytelling and used it brilliantly to build one of the most loyal and passionate tribes in the world.
And of course, we can't forget about the incredible array of online tools that are available to leaders today. Blogs, social media platforms, online forums, project management software. The possibilities are endless.
These tools allow leaders to connect with their tribe in real time, share information seamlessly, and collaborate on projects from anywhere in the world.
It's amazing to think about how much easier it is to build and maintain a tribe today than it was even just a decade ago.
Right. But it's important to remember that technology is just a tool. It's not a substitute for authentic connection and genuine leadership.
It's about using these tools in a way that strengthens your tribe, not just bombarding them with information or trying to control every aspect of their experience.
Exactly. Think about that UNICEF initiative in Rwanda. They were trying to educate people about HIV/AIDS prevention, but they were having trouble getting their message across because literacy rates were so low.
So what do?
They turned to music. They created songs about HIV/AIDS prevention and spread them through local radio stations.
And it worked.
Brilliantly. Because they understood their tribe, they knew that music was a more effective way to communicate than written materials. And they were willing to be creative and adapt their approach.
It's a great example of how a leader can empower their tribe to sing their own song, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about finding the methods that resonate most authentically with your tribe and giving them the freedom to express themselves in their own unique ways.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the power of tribes, the importance of leadership, the role of technology, and the need for courage, generosity, and curiosity.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the importance of initiative.
Oh, that's crucial. Taking initiative, being proactive, making things happen, that's what separates leaders from followers.
It's about seeing opportunities that others miss and then having the guts to act on them.
Exactly. Think about Barbara Berry, the designer we were talking about earlier. She wanted to get her furniture designs manufactured, but she was having trouble finding a partner.
So what did she do?
She took matters into her own hands. She created finished samples of her furniture pieces and presented them to potential manufacturers.
And it worked?
Brilliantly. Because she didn't just wait around for someone to discover her. She took initiative and made it happen. And that's something that any leader can do, regardless of their position or resources.
It's about having that entrepreneurial spirit, that willingness to take risks, to put yourself out there, and to make your vision a reality.
And it's about not settling. Godin makes this interesting observation about managers versus heretics. He says that managers, with their competing priorities and limited resources, often fall into the habit of settling for good enough.
They compromise, they make concessions, they lower their standards.
Exactly. But heretics, the true leaders, they don't settle. They know what they want and they're willing to fight for it. And that unwavering commitment is contagious. It inspires others to raise their own standards and strive for excellence.
And one of the most powerful things a leader can do is tell their tribe a compelling story about the future.
Oh, absolutely. Because people believe the stories they tell themselves. And a leader can shape those stories, inspire hope, and create a vision of a better tomorrow.
So, given all that we've discussed today, given the incredible potential that exists for anyone to become a leader and make a real impact in the world, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is this: Why not now?
Why not now? Exactly. The barriers to leadership have never been lower, the tools and resources are readily available, and tribes are everywhere, hungry for connection, for guidance, for inspiration.
So what's holding you back? Do you think you need more power, more money, more education?
History is full of examples of leaders who defied those expectations. John McCain, a prisoner of war, became a senator and a presidential candidate. Howard Schultz, a kid from the projects, built Starbucks into a global empire. Mahatma Gandhi, a lawyer with no formal authority, led India to independence.
These leaders didn't wait for permission or for the perfect circumstances. They saw an opportunity and they took action.
And that's the key. Waiting doesn't pay. Saying yes does.
And sometimes that yes means challenging the status quo, even within a large established organization.
Think about Brad Garlinghouse and his peanut butter memo at Yahoo. He saw that the company was spread too thin, trying to do too many things at once, and he wasn't afraid to speak up about it.
Even though it might have put his job at risk.
Exactly. But that's the kind of courage it takes to be a leader. And sometimes the worst that can happen is you get fired and end up finding an even better opportunity elsewhere.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of tribes, I think it's important to remember that at the heart of it all, leadership is about faith and generosity.
Faith in a vision of a better future. Faith in your tribe, and faith in yourself. And generosity in sharing your gifts, your knowledge, your resources, and your time with others.
Think about Jerry Sternin and his work in Vietnam. He was tasked with combating malnutrition, but instead of imposing outside solutions, he went into the villages and found the families who were already thriving, the ones who were doing things differently.
The heretics.
Exactly. And he helped them share their knowledge and their practices with others, creating a ripple effect of positive change.
Because true leadership isn't about ego or control. It's about empowering others, about creating something bigger than yourself, about making a positive impact on the world.
So as you go out into the world today, remember that tribes are everywhere.
And they're looking for leaders?
Leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo, connect with others, inspire belief, and act with generosity.
So the question is, will you be that leader?
Will you step up, raise your voice, and make a ruckus?
The world is waiting.
That's it for this deep dive into the world of tribes. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep leading.
We'll see you out there.